Welcome to episode 4 of Weekly Winners. I am Jur, and I'm here with my good friend Cody. We're going to dive right in here. We're recording on Sunday, midday Sunday, coming right off of watching some Olympics. And I was one when the USA was kind of losing those prep games. I was like, let's everyone calm down here. They're prep games. They're probably not taking them all that seriously. Some of these guys quite literally just got bounced from the playoffs. Let's give them a second or two to, get used to the international game. It'll be fine once the games mean something. And then all of a sudden they play this morning against France, who they're not a nothing team. They're definitely a good program, but USA was pretty considerable favorites, and they lose 83-76. They just get absolutely housed by Evan Fournier. Drops 28 on them. Are they going to get right, or is this just a bad year?
I think they probably will, but it's not like they have time. It's not like the NBA season where if you go like 10 and 20 in your first 30 games and you have 52 left, to make up some ground. Like, you don't have that in the Olympics. They kind of gotta step up tomorrow,
Right. And we like to see leading scorer with 18 being Drew Holiday, but he had to take 13 shots to get there. And the other thing is, Evan Fournier took 22 shots for the France team. Really was just him. No one else even took half that. And we just saw Drew Holiday, play excellent defense against Devin Booker and Chris Paul. If Drew Holiday just went to the Olympics and told, Pop, hey, I'm not going in the game. I'm just here. I just got done off a championship. Like, he could still be hungover for all I care from the celebration.
Right.
But we don't have anybody who can shut down Evan Fournier.
Yeah. My immediate reaction to that game was, how much of a difference did Coach K make? Do you think it comes down to that, or is it just the players that aren't, meshing?
Yeah, because it's obviously very different to coach the college game versus maybe it is coaching college kind of lends itself more to coaching the Olympic game, because you have these guys that maybe haven't played together for 6-7 years. You're kind of bringing them together, but
that was just my first thought, was maybe Coach K really did have an impact coming from that college scene.
Yeah, but at the same time, so much of coaching some NBA teams is managing egos, and you think that would be the ultimate skill you would need to have to coach these USA Olympic teams. But I guess we'll see coming forward. I took a quick peek at what where the odds went to. So they're down to minus 200 to win the gold medal. So we're still thinking they're going to pull it out. But at this point, if you aren't a believer, you can get no to win the Olympic medal. So essentially betting on the field for plus 150. So if you think this team just doesn't have it, I don't typically bet against my teams or ever bet against my teams or my country at this point, but I could absolutely see someone saying plus 150 for everyone else but the US when they're 0-1 and taking that line. They're minus 835 to win a medal at all. If you're truly not a believer and you think, which this could absolutely happen, say they lose their next one and they go 0-2, the guys just give up.
Right.
Plus 450 just to not medal. Because that's kind of what happened with the FIBA stuff last year. We sent half of the Celtics roster, and they just didn't make it out of field play. They got 11th or something. These guys, if it's are these guys really going to show up and scratch and claw to like, I don't know, get that last win in pool play if they're sitting around like 500? I don't know. I could see a world where they don't.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also just think, coming from the NBA and like you said, a lot of these guys, their seasons have ended within the last, month and a half. Um, I would consider like this pool play that's going on now, like the NBA regular season, where they know they don't have to win every game.
Mm-hmm.
It's not do or die. And I wonder if they still have a little bit of that NBA regular season mentality where it's like, okay, like the next step is what matters. What we
Mm-hmm.
do now, it's not yet.
Right, but it's also been like we've seen before teams, they've at least looked like they've had fun out there, like winning by like 50 or 60, and they're everyone like also the roster decisions are puzzling to everybody. Like you take out, Kevin Love, you send JaVale McGee, where it's like, yeah, maybe he's not the best player, but like you're telling me like to the Olympics, you had to send Melo. Like he has the
Right.
history there. Like there's no doubt in my mind he could still go and make 6 out of 7 threes like he's done several times in the past in the Olympics. Like I mean, unless he said no, like there's no way for us to know that. But or is everyone that's better than JaVale McGee saying no? I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't see that either. I feel like a lot of those guys take pride in the Olympics, like
Right. At the same
throwing the
time,
country on their back type of thing. And
it shouldn't
I feel
take
like,
12 guys either. Like if we
right.
send a really good 3, that should be enough. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you saw the Bucks, who were consistently one of the best defenses in the NBA. They beat them, but they didn't have an answer for Kevin Durant. And
Right.
now he gets out here and you know goes 4 for 12 shooting against whoever was guarding him. I don't know, Nick Batum. Puzzling. It has to be a real. I mean, maybe it is. You see some of these teams where the guys have been playing on the national team together for double-digit years, but you just have to think the skill gap should be too much for the USA to lose, but it's obviously not the case.
Yeah.
But other recent news we kind of had, we touched on it a couple episodes ago. Or what do we think is going to happen with Rodgers? There's, of course, all the nuance you're going to look into. He's going to get his house cleaned, and that's going to be a major story on every talk show for a week. You look for every little crumb and hint you can get to see what he's going to do. And then him and Devante decide to go on Instagram and both post the same picture of MJ and Pippen doing like the fist bump or whatever. And everyone's like, what does this mean? We're all left speculating. I think everyone's got their opinion on it. What do you think they're trying to say with this?
My gut was The Last Dance. That
I saw some of
that's where my
that.
gut that's where my gut went. And I really don't know. I mean, I don't see if Devante is dead set against not returning after
Mhm.
this year. I don't think the Packers would be dumb enough to keep him on the roster the whole year. Trade him and go get what you can get.
Right. Well, because that's
Like,
the other part of this is that extension talks with Devontae fell through.
yeah. Yep, Devante, he said he wants D Hop money, and
Mm-hmm.
the Packers just don't have money to give him D Hop money
No, he won't get it
without
here.
some massive restructuring
Right. And he'd
of other
absolutely,
contracts.
him hitting the open market, he would get that kind of offer from several teams.
He would. He
So,
would.
I mean, he's well within his right. You have to, you can hope a guy stays, but like at least my viewpoint is always, hey, if a guy can go get more money elsewhere, it like comparably more money. Like if a guy's, leaving over an extra million over 3 or 4 years or something, that's a little
Right.
different. But like if it's something like, hey, we clearly like we've been talking about it with the Bucks. Bobby Portis has a player option for the next year. Everyone in Wisconsin absolutely loves him, but he took kind of a pay cut to come here. He earned more money than he would make opting in next year. We would all love him back, but if he declines his player option and gets paid somewhere else, I can't really get mad at that. He deserves it, and it's not an amount of money
Right.
that the team can currently afford to pay him. So that's kind of always my viewpoint with players of my favorite teams, contract disputes and stuff like that. But yeah, and
Um, I don't know if you saw this too about when you were going through all the Rodgers stuff. So the house cleaning,
yeah,
he sort of came out and addressed that.
mhm,
He had him and Pat McAfee are good friends, and as you know, McAfee has his own like podcast show, whatever you want to call it. And he texted him and said, "Yeah, that house cleaning thing is not accurate whatsoever." I guess he's had throughout his entire career, he's had the same person who's like a good friend clean his house.
right.
And like he's never hired a cleaning company or anything. And he's basically just said like the girl that posted that on Facebook was just clout chasing essentially.
Yeah, and that's what's so hard. People like grab onto anything and be like, well,
Right.
the smaller it comes from, oh, that's an inside source or whatever. But
But
yeah, in the same vein to getting your house cleaned, I don't know if you saw this, Zadarius Smith tweeting about finding himself a realtor, which people kind of freaked out about. And then he comes out and says, well, I'm just trying to take advantage of the seller's market right now. It's like, well,
right.
it makes a lot of sense, but of course,
Yeah.
people are going to overreact about that as well.
Right. Um, yeah, and when it comes to Devante, I know I just said like if he's for sure not coming back, you should trade him. If somehow they get Rodgers back, if Rodgers says, you know what, I'll play this season, like
Mhm.
I think you do keep Devante because the fact of the matter is you still do have a championship caliber team.
If
You
they're
don't
both,
wanna
yeah,
if they're both there. If you
if they're
don't
both
have one,
losing,
right,
if they're going to both leave, your window is shut immediately. You're I don't want to say rebuilding because you have some of those young pieces, but you definitely need to develop them and put other pieces around them. So this would be kind of your last year for quite a few years where that championship window is open. So I feel like you do have to go for it if
right.
you have the opportunity to.
So like, yeah, if Rodgers shows up to camp and says like, I'm not happy, but I'll still go all in, to either help with trade offers or even just if he plays out the rest of his contract and wants to hit free agency somewhere, like
Mhm.
if he comes in, he's all in. I think you got to keep Devante. If
Mhm.
Rodgers says, you know what, no, like I'll sit the bench if you don't want to trade me, well then I think it's time to let Devante go
Yeah, it does not
and
make
at least
sense
try
to
to get
keep.
something.
You can't keep one of them. I don't think there's a world where you get Rodgers and they deal Devante. That wouldn't make sense.
No,
But I think there is a world where they keep Devante and Rodgers is gone for a year, which there's something to be said. Be like, hey, let's build up Jordan Love's confidence. Like, let him have a year with a top five receiver, but it's not going to help you. It's not going to help the team long term to keep him
right,
around for one extra year,
right.
unless you think Jordan Love can win a championship if he has Devontae Adams. But every move they've made regarding him has said the opposite of that. That he isn't
Yeah.
really ready. So yeah,
And that's the thing. Could I see him maybe getting to that point? Yes, but that won't be next year, it won't be the year after where
yeah,
Jordan Love could lead a team to a championship. I do think, I mean, we've had what 30 years of Hall of Fame quarterback play. That does say a little something about, the organization. And I think it says a lot that Love sat behind Rodgers for a year. So I think, optimistically, I think Love could potentially get to that championship caliber play, but it won't be next year. It won't be the year
We can sit
after.
and speculate on Jordan Love, and everyone else is doing it as well. Fact of the matter is, no one knows anything about him really.
And we won't until after the season. I
Right.
mean, he'll have bad games. I can tell you that. I
Mhm.
mean, he's young and the Packers reached, and this isn't like drafting Rodgers at the 25th overall like the Packers did.
Mhm.
This is a way different scenario. Like the Rodgers just fell into the Packers lap at 25. And
What the
here,
Patriots did with Mac Jones was more Rodgers like, where there
right,
were talks where he could go, top 10, top five. Obviously, didn't slip as far as Rodgers, but just sitting and kind of reassessing when the pick gets to you, be like, hey, this guy's still here. Like, let's
right.
scoop him up.
And yeah, and that's the thing, because they know they won't have Cam forever.
Right.
He did not have a very good season last season.
Mhm.
He's getting old. He's not as mobile as he used to be. Like
Mhm.
he's not, 2014 or 15 whenever he won the MVP. Uh he's not that Cam Newton anymore.
It feels more like whereas the running used to be a plus, like it's, oh, he's a great quarterback, but also if he sees that opportunity, he can seize it and make you pay with his legs. Where now it feels more like he's having to use what's left of that running ability to lean on when he can't, make the throws. Like it's, oh,
Right.
I don't know if he can make that 45-yard throw on the money. So instead he's gonna, bail out and get a 4-yard gain.
Right.
But I mean, the Patriots have seemed like they're kind of, and we'll get into it. We're going over the AFC team totals today, but they're at least willing to, kind of build the team around him around his strengths for this year at least.
Right.
But before that, we got one last news story. Uh, Major shakeups, and they kind of the recent realignment in college football happened a couple years ago. And now we're kind of staring down the barrel of it again with both Texas and Oklahoma kind of saying, we want into that SEC money, that SEC viewership. And, a lot of reactions from both sides coming down on this story. It would have to, I don't know all of the intricacies of conference realignment, but it would go to a vote of the other schools in the conference. And we know there's at least one big no, and that's from Texas A&M, who definitely does not want
Yep.
Texas joining in on the SEC.
And I guess if I'm one of the schools, if I'm Bama, if I'm LSU,
Mm,
I'm looking at it as, because it's all financial. They don't care about the level of football is going to be high in the SEC, whether those two schools join or not.
right.
I think it's going to come down to each school's going to assess whether or not they believe Bama and Texas would bring in more money for them. And I personally think the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
I, mainly because of Texas. Texas hasn't been, a top tier football school in, well, over a decade,
Long time, yeah.
but they're still the number one most valuable college football program. They're,
Mm-hmm.
they get views, they sell merch. They consistently bring in money. And I think them being in the SEC would help with future SEC TV deals.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma, on the other hand, probably not as much.
Texas gets booster money off the charts, and they're able to dominate back when recruiting was so regional because they had Texas, where so
Right.
much talent comes out of. And now a recruit, if they're a 4 or 5 star guy, could reasonably go anywhere in the country without an eye really being batted. And especially when a school like in your state, like Texas A&M, goes to the SEC, and the SEC, what they do, they're the clearly superior conference of Texas in college football, but the thing they really do is churn out NFL picks. So if you are a 4 or
Yep.
5 star guy, there's absolutely guys who are like, I don't know what school I'm going to yet, but I definitely know it's going to be in the SEC. And when there's one Texas school in the SEC, and that's A&M, they're just going to kind of gobble up some of those recruits. I guess the question you have to ask is, if Texas joins the SEC, do those recruits then kind of split between the two schools? Does Texas start to get more of them? And are they going to start getting more recruits from outside of the state or outside of the South?
I truly think Texas would. I
Mhm.
think Texas would overthrow A&M. It's a staple college football program. I mean, like you said, they dominated when recruiting was regional. And it's not anymore. And yet they're still the most valuable college football franchise as of like 2018. And so I think they would do very well recruitment wise. Just money wise, I think recruits that go there, now that they're allowed to make money off their name and likeness, I think they would do very well there, just with the amount of money going into that program. So I think Texas would come out ahead on that. Oklahoma, on the other hand, I don't see this helping the SEC.
Oklahoma will be more competitive in a football sense off the rip if they were to join. They have turned out
Yes.
very good teams, especially from having good quarterbacks. So it's kind of a tale of, will Oklahoma be able to continue turning out that good of teams when the competition has been raised that extra couple levels? And will Texas be able to, how quickly will they be able to catch up with schools like Alabama and LSU? And like you said before, it is all about the money for these schools. But this is an absolute death sentence to vote yes. Just teams like Vanderbilt and Mizzou and uh, Mississippi State, and even a team that's been exciting the last few years in Kentucky, who's turned out, both Mississippi State and Kentucky turning out some pretty high level draft picks coming out of their schools. But they were never going to compete with Alabama, LSU, and now bringing in 2 more programs that would be ahead of them in that pecking order. I mean, all 4 of those schools, it'd be hard to imagine them sniffing 500 again and getting to bowl
Right.
games.
Right. My other question, I guess, is what does this do to the Big Ten, the Pac-12?
It's
Like what does this do to those
how do you
conferences?
possibly, and there's been the talks as well of expanding the college football playoff to the 12 teams rather than the 4. But the real thing is, how do you rank these teams, especially if it would come down to picking 4? Because say we're still at the 14 playoff and we're 5 years down the line from now, and both Texas and Oklahoma have been in for, let's say, 3 years. You have to think they're pretty good. There's absolutely a world where the 4 best teams in college football are in the SEC. But they
Yeah.
can't they can't really do that. Like, there's no way if Ohio State doesn't lose a game, they're gonna be in if
Yeah.
they sweep the Big Ten. So then what? You got to kick one of those 4 big powerhouse SEC schools out, like. And I mean, what's a team in the Pac-12 going to have to do to get in a top 4 spot? They definitely have to go undefeated.
Yeah, and they're gonna have to start scheduling their non-conference games against SEC powerhouses, Ohio State or Notre Dame. Like
Mhm.
that's their that's their non-conference options. You can't have your non-conference game be against, clown college anymore. It's
Right. Every win matters. Like,
right.
especially for traditionally B-level programs, kind of like Wisconsin, where it's always the game. How late in the season are we going to be able to tell ourselves that they still have a fighting chance at that number 4 at the end of the year. It's because you can hold on really far if you keep that caveat in the back of your mind. Well, if we just go through the Big Ten and we beat Ohio State for the Big Ten championship, well, then how could they deny us?
Right.
But to get to, if it's to the point where there's only going to be one team out of the Big Ten, it's going to die off a lot quicker because you can't lose pretty much any games throughout the season.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact tweet. And I wish I could find it, but it was kind of a solution to like the 4-team uh thing. So your Power 5 schools every like 5 years get thrown into a pool, and you look at their record over the previous 5 years, and then you split them up like evenly, if that makes sense, like the records, so you'd have like Bama in one conference, Ohio State in another, like Texas and Oklahoma, like those are the number 1 schools in each. Then you go to, the second tier,
Yeah.
third tier, fourth tier. And then the college football playoff, you still keep it at 4 teams, and the winner of each conference goes to the college football playoff, because then you could look at the conference championships as like the quarterfinals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it would be great. It would never happen. One, because
No, it wouldn't.
the conferences are so regional, and it doesn't really matter. Like, the pro team, these big time college programs are so close to pro programs anyway at this point. Traveling to a different school every week, no matter where it is in the country, wouldn't really matter.
Right.
Especially with like a bye week and stuff. But like, yeah, no, the SEC at this point, if they get Texas and Oklahoma, they could legitimately just say like, we don't care about the NCAA. We're gonna run a 4-team SEC
Right.
playoff every year and name a SEC champion, and people would definitely care about that. They'd watch just as much or more. Just like, hey, this is the league now. Like,
Yep. And yeah, I don't know like what other conferences could do to compete. I mean, I think the Big Ten, just based off of region, would have to bring in Notre Dame.
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't know of any other like regional schools they could really bring in to compete with the SEC.
Right. I mean, regionally, there's very little. Like, it would make the most sense, like, because if it's really going the way it's looking now, is it's pretty much going to go to 4 conferences, and everything else is pretty much, whatever. It's kind of your minor league, like. But even the Pac-12, like, that's going to be so.
I don't think you'll see if this would get voted for them to join the SEC. I don't think you would see a Pac-12 team.
No, like, but I'm saying, if you're trying to compete with SEC at the Big Ten, you'd almost have to just like dissolve the other conferences. All these schools are like up for grabs, and Big Ten's like, we're going all the way both coasts. Like, give us Oregon, give us like, like we're truly a coast to coast conference now. Like, trying to think who else is even available to scoop up.
Like, yeah, if you take away the whole regional aspect, I guess you could go get Clemson.
They'd be way more likely to follow
to join the SEC, right? But yeah, I don't know.
It's weird. We really won't know how it'll impact it until it happens. But it kind of feels like it's heading that way. I don't really see I think it's more likely to see them join the SEC than it is to not at this point. I don't really know what that timeline looks like exactly, but it kind of feels like it happens to me.
I think my ideal playoff before we know the result of the vote, my ideal was always each Power 5 conference, the conference champion automatic bid. And then the next best non-Power 5 team. So then we could stop hearing all the UCF
Right.
fans
So you have
saying they
6
don't get a
there.
shot. You have 6 and then 2 at-large bids, which 9 out of 10 years both would go to the SEC. To
Right.
me, that would seem fair. SEC probably has 3 teams ever deserve a
Mhm.
shot. But that was always my ideal because I think what makes like March Madness so intriguing is that you get the small schools get a shot.
Yeah.
And I know you can't have a 64 team college football playoff,
Right. There's just too
but
many
I
games added.
but I do think if you expand to 8 and you give that one like almost at large bid to the best non-power 5 school.
Hmm.
Because to be fair, I do think UCF deserved a shot, just not in the current format.
Right. I believe the 12-team format that's being talked about is your top, because you don't want to slight the top 4 teams too much, is they all get a bye. And then
Uh,
there's 4 games going into that. So then say Alabama's your number 1. They're getting the winner of what would be
the 5,
the 8-9
12,
game.
8, or yeah, 8, 9.
And then, there's the 7-10 that'll go get the 2 seed. So it's kind of, you still afford that advantage to being a top 4 seed because obviously, that extra week of rest and everything in football would be so huge for those teams. But then if you bring that in and you run the risk of being like, well, it's been 3 years with this 12-team format and we're yet to see an upset. Like it's still just the top 4 teams every time. Like, did it really make a difference?
Yeah. I don't know. I'll be interested to see what happens with the vote. Um, because I'm guessing it's an all or nothing thing, right? They wouldn't bring in one team but not the other
Yeah, I'd have to think so.
because they want to keep that even number of teams because it's the SEC East and West, right?
Yeah. And then because that's where it's how do you align those with like those kind of lower tier teams that I mentioned earlier? Like,
So that's the other question. Um, so who gets moved to the East then? Because obviously both Texas and Oklahoma would join the West.
I don't know I don't think it actually makes a whole lot of sense now. Like, I think there's teams that are definitely like over whatever would be that middle line that
It
are in the
looks,
other ones.
I'm checking it out now. It looks um, pretty east west. Because I mean, you have Vanderbilt, which is in Tennessee, South Carolina on the coast, Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri would
Is
maybe
it
be the only one.
right? Is it Missouri in the East?
Yeah, that would be the only one really.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Bama, A&M, Auburn, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and LSU. So the only one that's really out of place is Missouri.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. We'll just see when that vote comes. We can revisit that. Obviously, that'll be the kind of the talk of the sports world again.
Right.
But I said it's time to make the people some money. And if you are not fading my baseball picks, then you're just missing out on free money. I went I went 1-6 on Friday, and I needed just some late inning runs from the Dodgers to even get that one. I was staring 0-7 in the face for a very long time. None of the games really looked good for past 3 innings. Uh, didn't really have a whole lot to root for. So many of them are dead so quick. So yeah, no, I was hanging on to a positive units and a positive record for a long time. And then I had a 0-4. And then you do, what every responsible gambler does, and you pick 7 games the next day to climb out of that hole. And then I went 1-6. So that's, 1-10 over Friday and Saturday. So bet with me. at your own risk and bet against me if you're looking to have a little extra spending money for the week. So for today, Sunday, I've got Nationals and Orioles under 10 and a half. That's minus 115. I got the Reds -2 against the Cardinals, which is plus 150. I got Miami money line against the Padres. That's plus 165. And I got the Rays and the Cleveland Guardians. It's not them yet, but that is the new announced name. Over 9 for minus 120.
So I do not have any picks for today. Woke up late and just completely forgot.
Mm-hmm. We will
But
tweet out
just
our Monday picks, though.
yeah. And then just trying to go through and see my last few days. So yesterday I was 0-4. So I have some gripes with yesterday. I had 2 games I was fairly confident on, and one was the Rangers at the Astros.
Mm-hmm.
I put 2 units on the Rangers money line at plus 175. Coming off of 10 straight losses, it has to end eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like last night was the night it would. Their pitcher had like a career ERA of like 186 against the Stros, a whip below 1, and he'd gone at least 7 innings every time he's played them. And we get to last night, and he gets pulled in the 6th because he walked 8 batters, gave up a few hits, a few earned runs, and I mean, and then you look at the Astros side, their pitcher had been struggling a ton lately. I think he got yanked after giving up like it's like 6 or 7 runs in the first 2 innings of his previous outing.
Yeah,
The
it's not
outing
good.
before that gave up like 7 runs in 4 innings, like just struggling lately. So to me, it seemed like a recipe for the Rangers to end the streak, but the streak lives on.
I believe as we're recording, they're down to the Astros again, so it may
They
keep
are.
going. But yeah, so we are gonna roll into our AFC, kind of our AFC overall, focused around the team totals and division odds. We did our NFC on what was it, last Thursday?
Yeah. It was our first
Our first
episode.
episode.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for the NFC team talk, you can find that there. But yeah, let's roll into the AFC. Starting with the AFC East. Obviously, Bills win it last year. Got got 13 wins and the clear favorite at the start of the season at minus 150 to win the division. Uh, Win line down to 11 though, from 13 last year with adding the extra game. I think a lot of that comes from projected having a little bit of a tougher division than last time. I think the Patriots got a bit better, and they're bringing the Patriots win total up from 7 to 9. Well, they won 7 last year, up to 9. Dolphins are actually bringing down from when they won 10 last year to 9 this year. And Jets, who won 2 last year, of course, going all the way up to 6.5.
Okay.
So,
Immediate reaction. I like the Jets under.
yeah.
6.5. I don't really see the Jets being, a game and a half better than the Lions.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. That's my immediate reaction. I wouldn't touch a Patriots over or under.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the Patriots. I mean, who knows? They pull Cam Newton week 4 and Mac Jones balls out, or vice versa. I don't know. Teams with like rookies that potentially might part way through the season, I just don't like touching.
Yeah, it's definitely true. You just don't know when that transition's gonna take place.
Right. Cause even, I mean, obviously you have teams like the Jags where Trevor Lawrence day one should be the starter. You'd hope
Of
at
course.
least. Um, but it's like you do have teams where it's like you don't know there might be a grooming process like the Dolphins did with Tua last year. So
Yeah, the my immediate thing is I don't see where uh, you're taking 2 games off of the Bills from last year,
right,
especially with an extra game. Like, yeah, you're bringing the Jets win total up a lot, but are you saying that they're going to win those games off the Bills? Like, I don't really see that happening. Uh, the Jets under, I'm shocked the odds aren't just terrible to bet that, or that line hasn't moved at all, because I guess there's just a lot of Jets fans out there, but I don't know. He's kind of Wilson's kind of the one quarterback I don't really see it with.
right.
And part of that, nothing really against him. A lot of that is he's on the Jets. Like
It's
that,
for
so many of these guys, it's talked about like, and part of this is just how draft talk goes. You get so much analysis on these guys before the draft. You know so much about them. You know who thinks who's gonna succeed versus who isn't gonna succeed, and so much of it is landing plays. Like if you switch Mac Jones and put him on the Jets, I'd feel the same way about him. Like there's no way he's going to succeed. He's on the Jets. And yeah, they've made some, it's not just quarterback. They've made some other offseason moves, but they're just, until they show it, I'm not going to believe that they just made a home run pick on who to bring in quarterback wise.
right. And I don't know, the Jets are just like one of those places quarterbacks go to die. I
Yeah.
mean, I wish the best for Darnold. He's off to North Carolina, right?
Yep.
Um, I I don't think Darnold's that bad of a QB. I think he's just in the Jets organization. That's how it is.
I was saying it, and we'll get to the Steelers later, but I was saying as a team, I was like, why, like, if the price is so low on these guys, like, and they kind of did, they brought in Haskins, who, you know, basically free, see if there's anything there. Like, bring in Darnold. Like, he was in the Jets. Like, there's a real chance he just, the moment he gets a little bit around him, like, he just turns it around and you could at least start seeing flashes. Like, just bring in kind of these guys. When it said that when the weird news around the draft was coming out, they're like, oh, Dolphins aren't sold on Tua a year in. I was like, I'll I'll gladly give a first right now for Tua. Like, you kidding
Right.
me? Like, he's 1 year removed, and that's why it's also perplexing to me. Dolphins and Patriots kind of same win total at 9.
Yeah, the Dolphins may have way higher of a ceiling
Definitely,
than
I think the
than the
Dolphins are
Pat.
gonna be pretty good this year. It's the thing that's perplexing to me about the Bills being such strong favorites at minus 150. I would be surprised if the Bills missed the playoffs, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins won that division.
Right.
I would be surprised if the Patriots won that division. And the Patriots are plus 350 to win the division, while the Dolphins are just barely ahead at plus 325. Like the Patriots aren't
Yeah.
going to be bad. The Patriots aren't going to have 4 wins, but they're also not going to have 12 wins. They just aren't. They're not built that way. They've kind of built their team this year. Like we're going to kind of grind them out and they feel like a playoff team, but they don't feel like a division winner to me.
Yeah. I I mean, if I'm putting money on the division, it's got to be the Bills. I mean, what'd you say the line on the Dolphins was?
Plus 325.
I'd sprinkle.
Yeah, I don't hate that line whatsoever.
I'd sprinkle, but I do think it's the Bills division to lose.
Oh, yeah, of course, as it should be. As it should be. But
I'm looking for Tua to take a step this year, a big step up.
mhm.
You look at his stats from last year. everyone looks, oh, well, they only threw for 11 touchdowns in 9 games. But what you don't see is like 64% completion percentage. Rookie QB, not bad. 5 picks in 9 games from a rookie. I will take that all day. I mean, it's like he protected the ball, didn't score a ton, but I think you can score all you want, but you look at a guy like Peyton Manning his rookie year, he broke the NFL record for interceptions.
Mhm.
Yeah, he
Like,
threw a lot of touchdowns, but if you're turning the ball over and giving the other team great field position, it all comes out in the wash.
you can say all you want about like what the really advanced statistics in the NFL, how much they mean or not, but the one that stuck with me is over his first year, if you take two his top 3 targets on the Dolphins and go for their like average yards of separation when he throws them the ball, basically how open they are. One, they're last in the league, and two, all 3 of them are not in the top 75. Like he didn't have a top 75 receiver in the league for just being open. Like
Right.
he's having to work for all of these completions that he's making, and for him to still have a very respectable completion percentage at that point, I have to think it's going to come.
I think it will too.
Especially with them adding receiver talent in the draft.
And I mean, if the Dolphins truly aren't sold, and if they would ever bench him this year, after looking at numbers like that, I think every other team in the league, I don't care who your quarterback is, go out and get them.
There should be if that happens, there should be about 25 or 26 teams making a call.
Right.
But yeah, so if we move on then to the one near and dear to my heart at the AFC North, we'll just run through the division odds. Ravens plus 125, Browns plus 140, Steelers plus 400, Bengals plus 2,000. Yeah. Obviously, Steelers won it last year at 12 wins. Ravens and Browns both had 11 wins. Weird thing that happened with the Steelers where they won the division and made the playoffs, and then they just didn't play that first playoff game. They just let the Browns advance. I don't know what happened there. Super bizarre decision from the league to not play that game, but yeah. But yeah, so they're really projecting a fall off from this division, which you would have to think would be a result of it kind of cannibalizing itself. Ravens,
that or who's their NFC division this year? Is it
we
the
must have gone
West?
through it last time, but I don't remember off the top of my head. They play the. Looks like they have the NFC East. Oh no, that's the preseason that they're playing the Cowboys. Oh, they get the North. They got the Vikings, Lions, Packers.
That's weird then. I mean, like if you're playing like the NFC West, I could see, the potential fall off.
Every team except for the Bengals had projected to win less than they did last year. Granted, the Ravens and Browns both are going from 11 to 10.5. But again, extra game in there. Steelers from 12 to 8.5. An extra game, like Bengals from 4 to 6.5.
So I'm not touching the Bengals. I mean, they're just so young.
Right. Burrow could definitely, there's a world where he brings them to 7 or 8 wins.
Right. But they're just too young for me to put money on.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't touch the Ravens. I think Lamar's overrated. I think he's electric to watch. I don't think he's the guy. I don't think he's the one who's going to bring you a ring, who's going to make you a perennial AFC North champion.
Words right out of my mouth. I'm not going to say the Steelers are going to win the division. What I will say definitively, and I'm sure this will be brought back up at the end of the season. Either way, because I'll bring it back up when I'm right. The Ravens are not winning this division.
I
Ship it,
I
send it. It's just not going to happen. I don't believe in them.
I love watching Lamar. I truly do. I think what he can do is just electric to watch. But I think at the same time, after he won his MVP, I think defenses you kind of figure out. You get enough film on the guy,
It always
and you
happens.
just kind of figure out. Like you look, I mean, same thing happened to Kaepernick, right? Had that playoff run, led him to the Super Bowl, and then next year defenses figured him out.
Maybe the
And
most
he was still above average. He was still an above average QB, but he wasn't an MVP contender anymore. Wasn't, hey, this is the guy that we're going to win 9 out of the next 10 NFC West championships with this guy. And I think that's where the Ravens are now. I don't think Lamar is the guy that will make them perennial AFC North champions.
And this is going to sound very disrespectful to Lamar Jackson. I do not mean it exactly how it's going to go, but you can bring in a guy who plays the position very differently than those of his peers, and it can be successful right off the rip because it is not something that other teams are used to. It's a culture shock. They've, played, in the pocket, standalone quarterbacks for 3 weeks in a row. All of a sudden, they have to play a player who doesn't throw it conventionally. He'll throw it on the run. He'll take off and run it for a bit. I know who's a guy like that who maybe has a magic playoff run in him because it's something that people aren't ready for. And then the next year hits, and it's, we had a week to prepare for him, a couple weeks to prepare for him, and we had plenty of film on him in the pros at this point. I'm not saying Lamar Jackson is Tim Tebow. I'm not saying he's going to be playing tight end in 6 years. Obviously, the highs that he reached are higher than he won the MVP. Tebow was never going to compete at that level.
Right.
And the lows he fell to this year, not even going to call them lows. The fallout was not as drastic. Now, has he won more playoff games than Tebow has? No. But I just don't see them being at the same level that they were 2 years ago. And another thing that has very much surprised me this offseason, one of my very good friends is a Ravens fan. And there has been very little outrage from Ravens fans this offseason about the moves their teams have made. You are a favorite to win your division. You have a young, exciting, former MVP quarterback. You have to believe this is your window to win a Super Bowl. And what do? Trade your all-pro tackle.
Right.
Oh, we could use a pick. What? This young quarterback who, as exciting as is and is shifty, is very small and definitely could – you definitely want to protect him for your future. And you're like, the Chiefs will give us a first-round pick. It's like, the Chiefs are – that's not going to be a top 30 pick.
Right.
Because it's the Chiefs. Like, how do you just sell off your tackle like that?
Well, now you just gave an AFC opponent, you just made him even better.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I can't go too far criticizing offensive lines here. Clearly, that is the hole in the Steelers team. But the slander from going from 12 wins to 8.5, you can't debate that they were not a top 3 defense last year, at the very least. I can absolutely put my numbers together to say they're the best, but someone could put equal numbers to say the Rams were a little bit better. But there's zero chance they're falling out of the top 2 or 3. They were an elite defense, very, very dominant, especially early on in the season when they were winning all the games in a row. And they got better. Devin Bush, who is an electrifying young linebacker, speed at that linebacker position that we haven't seen since Ryan Shazier, which breaks my heart every time I have to say his name. And then it's like, well, the cap problems, someone's gonna have to go. And as a as good of a compliment he was to TJ Watt, that had to be Bud Dupree. And what did they do? They just filled that hole. The team I think that defense is better than it was last year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. If I'm putting money down on the AFC North, it's got to be on more than one team because I
That's what I've looked
haven't.
at as well.
Because Big Ben is getting older, and if Haskins has to come in, who knows what happens. But at the same time, the Browns might have been a one-hit wonder.
I mean, the team's just very solid all around. They don't really
They
have
are.
a weak spot.
And I mean, I guess I'm putting money. I'm sprinkling on the Browns and the Steelers. I'm not. I don't think there's any way in the world the Bengals win the division.
No.
And I really don't think the Ravens do either. I mean, with Lamar, they're gonna have a shot. Again, like I don't hate Lamar. I will admit he's probably at least top 15, if not potentially top 10 QB in the league. And it's just I don't think he's the guy.
Mm. That's where it gets interesting. If you don't buy the Ravens slander that I'm throwing out there, but you're like, yeah, the Steelers could be better than advertised. Like, I cannot harp on this defense enough. If you put just the league average, whatever exterior linebacker across from TJ Watt and along with those other defensive line players, he's going to walk into like 6 or 7 sacks just because he's never going to see a second blocker. He just isn't going to. And they're like, so we're like, all right, yeah. So that's why we don't really need to keep Bud Dupree around. Oh, by the way, we're just going to sign Melvin Ingram. He's going to be that player that we throw on that. That's especially against a team with a mobile quarterback. There's not a team built better to contain them with that kind of speed they have at the linebacker position. If you can see the Steelers moving up, you can bet on what team is going to finish second in the division. And you can get the Steelers at plus 270 if you think they just have to leapfrog one of them of the
So you're
Browns and
saying
Ravens.
Sprinkle a little on both first and second?
I like you bet the dual forecasts. You go Browns Steelers to finish first, second in any order, plus 400. Because I think the Ravens are the team to fall off, not really the Browns. But also part of that is if I'm taking like the fandom out of it, which obviously we talk about it for the last 10 minutes. I absolutely am incapable of doing. I go you can bet like the exact finishing of the division. And if you go Browns, Steelers, Ravens, Bengals, exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, that's plus 700. Or if you're just going to go first two, it's like you can go Browns, then Steelers. You get a little bit of value on that. Like anything that's excluding the Ravens from the top 2 spots is kind of where my money would be.
Okay. And I'm with you. I do think the Browns are better. And I don't know, that extra game. I don't know if I think the Steelers are going 13-4 this year.
No.
But 11-6, 12-5, not out of the realm.
Right. As much as I don't want to admit it, the Bengals have taken enough of a step this year where I don't think anyone would be super surprised if everyone went, split the division.
Right.
3-3. Like that would be a big win for the Bengals to take one off of each one of those teams, but it wouldn't be that surprising. Yeah, I just end of the line. I believe a lot in the Steelers. The offensive line is obviously a little bit. They made signings. They brought Trey Turner in. Like I've heard all of this slander. Like they're going to be the worst in the league, the worst offensive line in the league. It's like you can. I feel like the bottom 10 in the league are very comparable to each other. Kind of
Right.
like the top 5 are probably very comparable to each other, save unless you have like a unit like the Cowboys from like 5-6 years ago. Like that was such clearly year after year, like super dominant. But like there's just also so few people that I feel like I can really be like, oh, what do you think? Like that really knows. I can like
Right.
evaluate offensive line. It's so hard. Like, yeah, they're probably not gonna be a top half offensive line in the league, but like to say like, oh, they're definitely gonna be the worst, I feel like that's impossible to do.
Yeah.
And they bring in Najee Harris, which at the time I wouldn't have. That wasn't my pick for them to take in the draft, but it might have been knowing that they're going to bring in Melvin Ingram because I was kind of advocating to get that Bud Dupree replacement. Granted, it's a 1-year deal, but for this year, I'm excited for him. I don't like glancing too much out of the division at the Bills or Chiefs and seeing the stack up there, but in the AFC North, which is what we're talking about, I like them a lot. So yeah, we go on to the AFC South, which we touched on a little bit when we talked about the NFC. You talked about kind of the cross-league matchups there. We both, I believe, said that we didn't really believe in the Colts.
Yeah. I mean, so what's their win law what's their total win
10.
at?
They won 11 last year. They're saying over under 10 this year.
I mean, it's just tough because Philip Rivers. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Right.
I think all the other pieces of that
Well,
team are there.
Carson Wentz.
Or Carson Wentz, sorry.
Yeah.
I think all the other pieces are there. I mean, I love Jonathan Taylor.
Mm.
You know, they've got a great offensive line. Their defense, top what, 8
Very
or
good. Very
better.
solid.
I mean, very solid defense. The pieces are there for them to be a double-digit win team, but it's how is Carson Wentz going to play?
People are awful optimistic that pretty clearly the worst quarterback in the league last year is going to be like above a league average this year.
Right.
But he's also like the injuries. Like he's had what he's been really good for 10 games. Like that's the best kind of stretch he's put together, and he hasn't done that in years. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I don't hate him taking a swing on it when they don't really have a whole lot of other options. But where
Right.
where, where do you stand, especially with that contract? Like where's your opinion of them if they give up what would be probably like a 4th or 5th round pick and just bring in like Teddy Bridgewater?
I think that I'd take the over if that's the case.
Like
If
it's
they bring in Bridgewater, I think they're better off than Wentz.
he would honestly be like the perfect match of their team because they don't have a single position where they're like, hey, this position group is like top 5 in the league. But it's like, oh hey, we don't have any that are like bad. Like we're just a solid team all around. Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater isn't gonna go out and throw for 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, and 12 picks. But he's also not going to turn into Carson Wentz season where he's just awful. Like, they would just be the ultimate, like, just nothing's going to go wrong team. Like, we're just safe
Right.
everywhere. But no, they take the swing with Wentz, and we'll see. So this is interesting to me. I'm going to compare the AFC South here to the NFC West, odds-wise, where there's kind of 2 teams at the top that are very close, where the Colts are plus 105 and the Titans are 110. But then the drop off with the Jags and the Texans in this division, whereas more competitive in the West as we we're saying plus 190 for the Rams and 49ers in the NFC West, where it's like way more value to bet those two teams. Whereas like who's really betting the Colts or the Titans at basically even money to win the division?
Right. I mean, so what are the Jags and the Texans at?
Jags
Not
plus
that it really matters.
Jags are plus 800 if you think that the Colts and Titans fall off, which I think is a possibility. Fall off that far for neither of
I
them to win the division? Probably
I
not.
I'm running with the Titans, even though it's easy money.
Mm-hmm.
Or even money, not easy money. Even though it's pretty much even money, I think the Titans, I think it's their division to lose. I not a Carson Wentz faithful.
Yeah.
And I think the Jags, I think Lawrence will show his youth, and who even knows if the Texans are going to be a franchise anymore. So
Plus, what would that number have to be for you to put money on it? Like even $1? Like
I mean, I don't know, probably like plus 4,000, 5,000.
plus 2,800 to win the division.
I mean, I
Which
guess
is,
maybe if we're talking a buck, I might just throw a buck for, but even then I might as well just throw my dollar in the trash. Like,
right. The Texans have the same odds to win the division as the Titans do to win the Super Bowl.
I love that.
Yeah, it's not a great place to be.
What's the Texans team total?
They won 4 last year, and they're
Okay.
saying over under 4.5 this year, an improvement for the Texans.
I'm taking the under. I'm probably
As
not. I mean, I'm not betting on it. If I were to bet on it,
it's minus
I already have.
159 to take the under.
So, okay. Yeah. Then I'm not even taking the under.
Yeah,
Not worth
it's
my
very
time.
bad. They
I already
somehow
have.
got 2 wins in the division last year. I did see Deshaun Watson is reporting to camp this week.
Yeah. It's just
Mostly
so that he
just
doesn't get fined,
avoid the
though.
fines. But you know, just getting him around, a team, it's like, do we really think this guy is like done? His career is just over?
I don't know. Is he going to jail or what's all going on with
No one
that?
knows about it.
Like,
Like I feel like we haven't heard an ounce of new information in months.
right. Like, I don't know.
I mean, again, like we said with the Tua situation, like how many teams would it be just a terrible PR move for anyone who would do it, but like to just take a swing that he's just innocent? Like, I can't imagine it would be. I mean, it is the Texans. Like, who knows? Maybe they're like, oh no, he's still like a top 5 quarterback. Like, that's what we want. But like, just to take a
Right.
swing on him, like,
And I don't think the PR matters, by the way.
he
Uh,
usually doesn't.
it's the NFL. They've signed people that have been proven to do stuff worse than that, and
Yeah,
not
I mean,
comparable to that.
no one bats.
And
No one bats an eye at the name Kareem Hunt anymore.
right,
He's just back and he's bent back.
right. So I don't think anyone in the NFL, for better or for worse, cares about the PR aspect
The
of
problem
it.
is the point in the offseason where we're at, where if someone were to do it, it would be the only thing talked about for about a month.
Right,
If
right,
it gets to like week 4 and he's not playing, and the team's like, well, like even if like someone got hurt and the team was like, well, let's bring him in. I feel like it would be a story, obviously, but it would be like, oh, well, it would
yeah,
get less traction about it. I think the story would be more about like how he's gonna do and stuff rather than
yeah.
his allegations. We do more information just needs to come out about it. I don't really want to say too much about what I think because I know nothing more than what anyone
Right.
else has seen from the news reports. But
So what do they got at the Jags win total at?
6.5.
That seems about right. I could definitely see it. I think they got two gimmies with the
That's
Texans.
the like I was thinking that way as well. But like if they're saying 4.5 for the Texans, you got to think one of those is against the Jags.
Yeah,
I want to see when those games are. How like early on does he play the Texans? Because if he plays them like week one, like that definitely isn't a gimme. And they do. They play him
right.
week one.
Okay.
So that stuff that could go either way. His first game, like
Although the Jags did confuse me a little bit drafting N10 or whatever
ETN,
his
I
name is.
believe. Yeah.
Um I mean, I with how well James Robinson played last year, and
Yeah.
he's on a free agent contract too. He was an undrafted free agent, I think.
Yeah. It was the draft of pairing up college teammates.
It was, but I like it in the case of the Bengals because I mean AJ Green out,
Mhm. It was
going
it
and
was
getting
it was the right place in the draft too. Like even
right,
if that connection wasn't happening, no one would have blinked an eye at that pick in that position.
right. But yeah, I don't know. I would have liked to see them shore up another defensive position or
Definitely, yeah.
um
Because they
I
have
mean
exciting players on that defense still.
they do, but there are holes as
Of
well. I
course,
mean,
yeah. I mean, they won a game. They won one game last year. There's
right,
holes all over the place. The offense, as the offensive line, isn't has improvements that need to be made, but like there's exciting receivers there, like
right. DJ Chark,
Laviska Chenault, like
right,
especially like you had some like young tools around like in place already. Like that's almost the one thing you didn't need to
right.
do. Like so like
I don't know.
it's such a home run. Like it's not going to work every time, but it's such a home run thing to like show to your like fans and to your like coach and to your young quarterback. Like, hey, 2 first-round picks. We got our quarterback and we got his right tackle or his left tackle. Like we're protecting his blind side. Like this is the guy that we're like he's going to be with him for his whole career here. Like it's such a home run like move. Like show
Yep.
right away that how much you care about like your QB, which I guess drafting his running back from college kind of does too. But like, yeah,
But it's like,
head
what
scratcher for
is
sure.
so what? They spent a first round pick on a guy who's going to be in a committee, or are they just going to
Right.
drop the guy who rushed for 1,200 yards last year?
I don't.
Like,
I just don't really believe in really drafting any running backs in the first round. Usually, like
running backs,
it would have made
most
more sense.
disposable
Right.
position.
It would have made more sense if Najee Harris would have dropped. And it's like, well, this guy, like all the talent in the world, like people thought he was going before him, like they were going before this, and they like, oh, he kind of fell to us. But they picked what was it, like 2 picks after Najee Harris went? Like they picked the second best running back right after the first best running back went. And it was a discussion whether like there will be a running back chosen in the first round.
Right.
So like taking the second one is kind of a bad look there, but maybe he's awesome. Maybe he just steps right in and he's the one to rush for 1,300 yards this year. But
But I still
it's
don't think it's worth it at that point because you already
right.
got on a guy on the roster who can do that.
Yeah. I did see something where Saban was having him like he wasn't like even doing running back drills. He was just like running routes, which is interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
But like we said, they have wide receivers. So like,
I
I don't
mean,
know.
Urban Meyer.
Yeah. Like, I don't know why. I mean, obviously you want him to be a threat in the backfield, but like unless you're planning to go like 5 wide a bunch, which might be a good showcase of Lawrence's talents, but questionable. They already have an all pro tight end coming in, so I don't really think pass catcher is the the position of need. But let's move on to the big one, I'd say, the AFC West. Lots of talent in this division, but Chiefs, as they should be, massive favorites. Minus 335 to win the division. I don't think anyone's betting that line really.
Right. I wouldn't put money on it, but I wouldn't put money on anything else either.
Right. They won 14 last year. They have them going down to 12 and a half, which like it's reasonable to say like, okay, like made the Super Bowl twice in a row. Like a team kind of reevaluates and it's like, let's try to peak at the right time in the playoffs. But I don't, that's such a NBA way of thinking. Like it doesn't really happen in the NFL really that much outside of the Tom Brady Patriots. Like those teams were never going to win like outside of the the undefeated year. They weren't. You couldn't really pencil them in for like 13 wins every year.
Right.
They're just gonna. They just need to make it to the playoffs. And but is that this Chiefs team? Like they go 4-0 like every September.
I mean, I'm probably taking the over.
12 and a half, just that seems so attainable.
I don't see them losing 5 games. I don't see them going 12-5.
Right.
So I mean,
I guess if the Chargers are reaching their potential, and if the Broncos get Rodgers, like
right, and that's really what this division depends on. Is,
but I mean,
in my opinion,
they went 4-2 the division last year. Like, are they going to go 2-4 in the division? I don't think so.
right, right. Oh.
There you go. But yeah, so then, but the Chargers, they're plus 575, long odds at set to be the second best in the division. I could absolutely see some people betting that. Like
the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean they've had all the talent in the world, but they've been plagued by injury for how many years? Like if it's the year that they just get healthy, like Herbert looked good last year, like they're exciting.
I mean, I know my number 2 team in that division.
Yeah.
Vegas, baby.
Plus 2,000 win the division.
I'd probably sprinkle a little on there.
7 for their over-under.
Oh, I'm taking the over on that.
Broncos are plus 600. Obviously, that all moves with Rodgers going or not. Like,
curious what it moves to, though.
Right. 8.5 over-under. Like, tempting to just bet the under because, like, if Rodgers doesn't go, it's like there's no chance. Right. And, like, there's a real chance that even if he does go at this point, we're so close to the start of the season. Like, is he going to come out with his first new team? Like, he hasn't had to, like, join a new team in
ever
15 years. Like, and even that he had the year to, like, learn the playbook. Like,
yeah.
Is he just going to come into a new offense, just slinging all new receivers? Like, maybe he does, but we're looking at very little prep time.
Right.
I mean, if they brought him in and they went under 8.5, that would be such a disappointment for them. But because there's no way they're making the playoffs at that. But
right.
Yeah, no, I just don't think. I will say it's unlikely that Aaron Rodgers is playing 17 games for the Broncos. It's very unlikely.
Agreed.
So yeah, no, plus 600. I guess if you're a believer in the trade, plus 600 could feel like value there, but that's a bet that could be dead by week 1 if they don't trade for him.
Yeah.
The division, they didn't get Rodgers.
Yeah, this is actually the only division I have 0 futures on.
Yeah.
Because even with Rodgers, I just don't see the Cardinals or the Chiefs losing the division.
So guys, we'll do what we did with the NFC. Let's both pick a team to win the conference to bet on, an over to bet on, and an under to bet on. And then we'll go into the conference and Super Bowl odds.
All right. So you want to go first? I'm pulling up.
Yeah.
Unless you want to share.
Oh yeah. Give me a second here. I got Yeah, I'm gonna go. As much as I talked about it, I'm not gonna bet the Steelers to win the division. I'm gonna bet that over. I just It's 8.5 games. That's the 500 line, and yeah, call me and tell me that's a bad bet after we see Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger have a losing season, and then I'll listen. But until then, I'm not going to bet on them to have a losing season, especially when they have the best defense in the league. Um, so that's going to be my over bet. My under bet, I'm going to go. I mean, the one that jumps out to me is the Ravens. I'm going to see if there's something else I could pick to
Not just
to not just
decimate them.
yeah, just not to bet Steelers over Ravens in every way. I'm gonna go with what we were just talking about. On the books. I'm gonna say the Broncos are my under at 8.5, just because I don't believe in that trade. So both lines 8.5. Steelers over 8.5. Broncos under 8.5. And then my team to bet on to win the division, I'm gonna bet on the Dolphins plus 325 in the AFC East.
Okay. Do you want to share your screen quick for the team overs or team totals?
Sure. Here your conference odds, and then these are your team totals. Middle ones is how many they won last year.
My Zoom crashed when that happened.
Oh, love that, love that.
So sorry about that. Alrighty, so yeah, if I had to take an over right now, I honestly I like the Raiders at 7. Mainly because I don't think it's far-fetched to say that Devante Adams is a Raider this year. I really don't.
They went 3-3 in the division last year. It would feel like to get over 7, they would have to at least replicate that.
Right. Which I think they can. I don't think they did beat the Chiefs once last year. I don't think they do that this year, but I think there's a good shot they go 3-1 or better against the Chargers and Broncos. For my team under, I immediately just want to say Texans, but
the odds are not with you, but
it's too bold. I think I'm going with the Jets under. I don't see them winning 7 games.
6.5 is a lot.
And then to win the division, I'd have to say either Browns or Dolphins would be my two. I do like the Titans, but plus 110, just that's not sexy enough for me.
Right. Yeah, you have two very distinct types of divisions here. You have the two that kind of have the two heavy favorites with low plus 100 odds, and then the two where it's like a very clear favorite, and everyone else you're going to get very juicy odds on.
Yeah. I mean, I like the Dolphins. I think they'll probably hit their over as well on wins. I mean, 9 seems low to me, but at the same time, I'm not confident enough that they can win that division with the Bills.
Yeah, no one will be surprised if the Bills win it. I just kind of like the Dolphins. I just like them this year. I think people are lower on them than they should be.
Right.
Yeah, if we want to see who do we think is gonna win the AFC? Chiefs to go to a third straight Super Bowl, only plus 250 feels, and maybe again, no one would be surprised if it happened, but not very good odds for something for a team to go that deep again after doing it the
Right.
last two. Next closest, you're getting the Bills plus 600, little over double the odds. I don't hate that bet. They could definitely do it. They would probably have to. Anyone you're talking about, you have to think of them in terms of can they beat the Chiefs? Because it's unlikely that you're going to get a team to go to the Super Bowl who has the Chiefs getting taken care of by somebody else. You're probably going to have to
Right.
do it yourself. So you have to think what teams are capable of beating the Chiefs. And to me, like you have to say the Bills. The Ravens are next at plus 650. I don't think the Ravens are capable of beating the Chiefs, and there really aren't a lot of teams that are. I don't think anyone in the AFC South is beating the Chiefs in a playoff game.
I mean, there for some reason my gut just tells me like the Titans could 1 out of every 10 times, but
Right. I mean, I think most teams could 1 out of 10 times. Football's just got variance like that.
right,
But I think the path for it, any team to do it, is you have to win the division and you have to just win more games. You have to get that one, or you got like basically get that one seed. You have to make the Chiefs. When you have to get that extra week of rest, and you have to make the Chiefs come to you rather than. I think
right.
that's the path of success for the Bills is getting the one seed and getting that week to prepare for Mahomes and making them come to Buffalo. I think is the world where they go to the Super Bowl. And so yeah, talk about the Super Bowl Chiefs. 250 to go, 500 to win it. Similar Bills, 600 to go, 1,200 to win it. It's interesting. If you think the AFC is going to win the Super Bowl, I wouldn't hate just kind of betting a couple of your division favorites to win it. See what prices you can get.
Right.
I like that, and I will be putting a little money on that Steelers plus 4,000 to win it, but I always kind of do that. I always sprinkle at the start of the season on the favorite team to win it all. Just adds that little bit extra. You saw got that little extra pocket change after the Bucks did it.
You're right.
Yeah, it's so hard to pick a team. Like you can basically pick every team apart for their chance to like get to the Super Bowl. Like you can look like, oh, the Browns are plus 750 to win the AFC. You just pick apart like, they have to go through like the Bills and the Chiefs, and like, are they capable of doing that back to back weeks? Like, probably not. Like, you can basically pick. You could just think of the path that they'll have to go through in the
Right.
AFC in this AFC, especially with some of the strong defenses.
Yeah. And that's where I think it's a little tougher to pick for the NFC because it's like, well, if Rodgers is in Green Bay, they might have to go through Lambeau, but they might also have to go through Tampa Bay,
Right.
or they might also have to go through Seattle or the Rams, or, like there's a lot more potential teams that you'll have to go through where in the AFC, it's pretty much you're either going to have to go to Buffalo or you're going to have to go to Kansas City.
Right. It's a lot more polarized.
Right.
No, but say that's all we got for this week. We kind of got a super show coming on Thursday with I'm going to do a deep dive on at least the lottery of the NBA draft. Come with a couple of trades that I like for some guys that have been in trade talks, and basically call it kind of your NBA offseason prep. And at the same time, Cody's going to come with the MLB trade deadline got a couple of deals he likes. And of course, if any happen before that, we'll talk about it on Thursday as well, along with, any picks or some Olympics talk and news stories as well. So yeah, kind of a super episode coming on Thursday. So make sure you watch out for that. But thanks for listening to this one. Remember, I gave my baseball picks. Unless you really trust a bounce back from me, bet the opposite. And probably the same goes for Monday. We'll tweet them out. But hopefully you can make a little money off me, or hopefully you're just better at it than me and you can pick your own winners. But thanks for listening. And yeah, we'll see you guys on Thursday.